outside.
I know. She looks at the. Go back and sit in your chair. That's what it's for.
That'll look good.
What type of meeting was it in the evening?
No, it was at 10 o'clock in the morning. No, I had the two guys in the schools.
Three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9, 10.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
Okay, you can stay. Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature. I'm Jill Kuramoto. Every week we sit down with Hawaii senators to talk about the events and the issues that are happening within the Senate during this legislative session. And joining us today we have Senator Glenn Mackay. Senator Mackay represents District 15, which encompasses Kalihi to Pearl Harbor. And Senator Mackay is the chair of the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Tourism and Technology. Thank you for joining us this morning, Senator.
Thank you for having me. It's always wonderful to wake up early, brush my teeth, and comb my hair just for you and Olelo.
Well, we're glad that you at least do that. All right. I know that over the weekend you were on the Big Island talking to residents of the Ka'u area about a measure that got a lot of attention. It was intended, I believe, to bolster the economy here in Hawaii. How did that go, and why did you go there, actually?
I think Hawaii has a great opportunity to play a pivotal role in the global aerospace industry. And of all of the islands, the Big Island, because of its vast amount of land, its terrain, its proximity closest to the equator, could play a pivotal role in Hawaii's opportunities to grow this market. So there is a special purpose revenue bond for an organization called Spin Launch. And Spin Launch would like to set up an operation someplace in Hawaii. They were looking at Ka'u. And keep in mind that Spin Launch is not your grandfather's rocket, not like the typical vertical payload, 90% fuel and shoot it into orbit. They use centrifugal force and just slingshot this baby out into the stratosphere. So the impact isn't quite as we know it today for traditional launches. So I thought, wow, could be a neat idea, and let's perhaps do it all on the Big Island. Well, it became very evident as the legislative process went on that Ka'u said, no way, Jose. And so little Jose, me, went down there this past Saturday to try to just see if I could iron out some of the misunderstandings of the measure. And it was made very clear that it doesn't matter what I was going to say, that the people of Ka'u didn't want any kind of launch facility in their neighborhood. They just wanted to continue to grow ag, particularly hemp and marijuana. They thought were their tickets to a better economy there. So I'm going to take our Spin Launch folks and the entire special purpose revenue bond and look for someplace else in Hawaii that might be more open to being the center of small satellite launches.
But Spin Launch still wants to stay in Hawaii.
Oh, yes.
And you would like it for it also to stay?
Well, it has a great opportunity for jobs. I mean, you look at the fact that we have the lowest unemployment in the nation. We don't need more jobs. We need quality jobs. And aerospace provides that opportunity to provide that for us. And it's not just the launching of the satellites into space. It's the actual manufacturing of the satellites themselves. Because when if it gets going, the satellites will be made on the mainland and then brought here. But as we launch more and more of them into space, and there's 10,000 in the queue, there's going to be pressure for these companies to perhaps reset their operations and their research and development here in Hawaii as they just move the satellite across the street and launch it into space. So there's so much growth opportunities. It's just unfortunate, in my opinion, that it's not going to be happening in Ka'u.
All right. Well, stay tuned on that one, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, I know another measure that has garnered quite a bit of attention, HB 2010, which passed the Senate and was intended to reallocate some of the money from Hawaii Tourism Authority to more responsible and proactive planning and protection of Hawaii's infrastructure and resources, natural resources. However, those that are opposed this measure say that it's going to take away jobs and it could impact marketing efforts for the HTA. What is the Senate's intent with HB 2010?
The sky is not falling. Tourism is not coming to the end of the road is what the Hawaii Tourism Authority would like the public to believe about HB 2010. All we're doing is reconfiguring the budget. We're not taking away any monies from festivals, cultural programs, environmental sustainability programs. We're just saying, HTA, you focus on tourism marketing and stay focused in that area. We are going to put those other monies into the hands of those who should be the stewards of that those areas. So for example, for trails and restrooms being open for our visitors, shouldn't that be the deal in ours, Kuleana? When we're talking about police patrols, lifeguards at our beaches, shouldn't that be with the counties to dispense the money as they see fit? So instead of having HTA get sizable chunks of money, we're going to say that a bit of that is going to go directly to the agencies that oversee those areas. So we're not taking one dime out of tourism marketing. We are, though, saying that some of these non-tourism related activities are perhaps better handled by other agencies. And the crux of it is really based on what came out in February, this audit. This audit shows that there are a lot of blemishes, a lot of problems going on at the Hawaii Tourism Authority. And so if we want to, it's like we have a diagnosis here, like your oncologist told you you have cancer. You have one of two choices. You're going to pretend like that didn't happen and, okay, well, I'm going to just live my life as usual, or am I going to take some type of action to put my microphone clip back on and take some action to try to resolve and address some of the problems. And the Hawaii Tourism Authority just seems like, hey, everything is cool. Let's continue on. Give me my $82 million. Lawmakers don't look at reconfiguring that allotment. And some of us feel that no, there should be some changes there. And until you get your house in order, maybe some other agencies should be in charge of funding some of your non-tourism related programs.
I see. Okay. Well, so again, this measure and many others are heading into conference, which is where we are right now in this legislative process. Conference is when the House and Senate work together to try and come up with a bill that everybody agrees upon. Why is this such a critical part in the bill-making process?
Well, because we can only send one bill to the governor's desk. So the House has a position, the Senate has a position. We can't say, hey, Governor Ige, pick and choose which one you like better. We have to come to an agreement. And some of the disagreements are quite vast. But to me, this is the fun part. I mean, this is the fourth quarter. This is where the Patriots lost to the Eagles, right? This is where all the action is. The first 3 quarters is all window dressing. Now is an opportunity for us to really hammer out and work with our colleagues from across the chamber and come up with one solid piece of legislation for the governor to contemplate.
Well, how do you respond to those who say that this part of conference doesn't fairly allow for public input?
The public had a lot of input for the past 3.5 months, and nothing that's going to come up in conference hasn't already been discussed someplace in the House or in the Senate. At a certain point, government has to move forward. If we were just to have input ad nauseum, then we would never get anything done in this body. So everything has been discussed. People may or may not agree with what has been discussed, but the process has been open for the public's input.
Well, thank you, Senator, for joining us this morning.
My
and I know
pleasure.
that we need to stay tuned because both of these measures that we talked about are going to be heading into conference. So we'll see what happens, right?
Cross your fingers.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. And you can stay up to date on anything in the Senate on our HawaiiSenateMajority.com website. You can also check the Capitol's website at capitol.hawaii.gov. Thanks for watching Live at the Legislature. We'll see you next week.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capitol.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The public access room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from
Good morning and welcome again to Live at the Legislature, where every week we talk to members of the House of Representatives about the issues, bills, and happenings going on at the state capitol. With us this morning we have Representative Chris Lee, who represents Kailua and Waimanalo, and is the chairman of the Energy and Environmental Protection Committee. Good morning, Representative.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here, bright and early, following the Senate.
Yes, of course. We're in April now. It's a critical point in the legislature. We're starting to wind up, and we've just gone through second crossover and are headed into conference committees this week. Could you explain to our viewers a little bit of what that means and where we're at?
Yeah, so basically we're at the point in the legislature where the House has moved a whole lot of bills through public hearings. The Senate has done the same. And in the House, we sent over about 220 bills to the Senate, and the Senate sent 320 bills to the House. And so these bills have been amended, and they're probably a little bit different than they started when we first heard them. And so what that's going to mean is that we've got a bunch of bills which are different between what the House wants to do and the Senate wants to do. So coming up these next 2 weeks, we're going into what's called conference committee, where you have members of the Senate and members of the House get together and butt heads sometimes to figure out those differences and come up with one final draft of each bill going forward.
And how long will that take? Will that take a week or 2 weeks? Or?
You know, the truth is, for about half the bills maybe, it's really easy. It's tweaking a period here or a comma there, and those fly through. For others, there are some significant differences, and these things end up usually on the front page of the paper where we're at loggerheads over it. But I think this year it's been really smooth, and we know that affordable housing and all kinds of other issues are priorities for both chambers. So I think we're going to get a lot actually done.
Well, let's talk about a few of the specific bills then that are going through, and you can tell us where we're at on those. One is about pesticides, Senate Bill 3095. Where is that and what's that about?
Right. The House just pushed over to the Senate a bill on pesticides, which has been an issue here, as everyone knows, for goodness, like 5 or 6 years now. And what the bill does is requires that if you're going to spray restricted use pesticides, which can be a danger and have put people into the hospital in certain places, that you disclose what you're spraying, when you're spraying it, how much, and so forth. Real basic stuff, so that when there is an incident or there are concerns raised by communities that there's a negative impact or health impact, that the data is there to then do an analysis to figure out if there's something that needs to be done. The other thing it does is prohibit a chemical called chlorpyrifos, which has been banned in the EU. It's responsible for about 10,000 human deaths per year around the world, and it's something which cannot be used safely. It sent a bunch of people to the hospital here in Hawaii in recent years, and so we want to follow what regulators in other countries have done and say, you know what, we want to replace this with something safer.
I see. Are you willing to predict whether this is going to pass or not?
I'm not a gambling man, but I'd give it a 70-30.
Okay, that's pretty good odds. Well, another bill is Senate Bill 2571, sunscreens and oxybenzone. Again, what is this about and where is it at?
Yeah, this is again about protecting the environment, and in this case, you know, we have a lot of sunscreen that goes into our waters on a regular basis, and what's been found is that certain chemicals within them, like oxybenzone, actually have a negative effect on coral reproduction and life. And because we're already expected to lose as much as 90% of our coral reefs here in Hawaii in the next few decades, we got to do something to really protect that. So this would prohibit that kind of sunscreen with those kinds of chemicals so that people can use the safe stuff that's not going to have a negative impact on our reefs.
So there is safe stuff to use. Is it readily available?
There is. There is.
Okay.
It's the kind of stuff that I use when I go to the beach every weekend. I'm not wearing some today, but it's the same as anything else.
It's a little rainy today for
Yeah.
sunscreen. Let's talk about consumer protection under your Senate Bill 2939, which, what is that one all about? And
So this is one of those bills that's flown under the radar, but is actually likely the single biggest consumer protection measure the legislature and the state has ever passed in its history since statehood.
Wow.
Because what it would do is potentially protect consumers from having to pay somewhere between $10 to $20 billion in additional cost on their electric bills over the next few decades.
Mm-hmm.
So this dwarfs rail and anything else in terms of sheer cost to consumers. And what it does is, rather than letting utilities continue with their current status quo 20th century way they charge for power, where they earn money based on every dollar they spend on building out infrastructure, whether it's a new power plant or transmission lines or what have you, which creates this incentive to build them as expensively as possible because they get an automatic percentage. Instead, it says, no, utilities, if you're going to earn money, let it be for reducing costs. Let it be for achieving renewable energy goals, providing good customer service, doing all the things that utilities in the 21st century now really need to be doing. And that's something which other states have already started to move in on, and it's something which seems like a no-brainer here, especially since, for example, when NextEra was pitching projects, they had as much as a $30 billion price tag they were looking at that they were going to pass on to all of us. So this would really try and fix that before it becomes an issue.
So it's looking to the future responsibility in taking care of these needs.
That's right. I mean, who wants to pay high electric bills
Right.
if we can pay just a little bit less?
What would it mean to the individual, consumer, the individual household?
Well, I think it's hard to say because it depends on what kind of projects are put forward that are ultimately, whose costs are passed on to utilities. So in this case, we don't really know, but this would create an incentive to do things more cheaply than more expensively to achieve the same goals.
I see. Another one that is relevant to everyone is about hurricane preparation, basically. House Bill 2110. Where is that at and what is it?
Yeah, so we all know what's happened in Puerto Rico following some of the devastating hurricanes
Right.
there, and Hawaii is no different. Puerto Rico is out of power in many places for over 6 months, and that's not something we want to do here, but our electric grid is equally susceptible to that sort of thing. And we know we're due for a hurricane anytime. So this would really set up and enable microgrids and other sorts of changes that would basically create a whole bunch of watertight compartments on our electric grid. So if one area goes down, then you can have power still throughout the rest of the island. And it also creates competition on the grid because now you have folks who can take their business and some surrounding homes or a school and part of the community and generate their own power and share it amongst themselves. And that's one way that you really create this marketplace for power that ultimately will reduce costs in the long run.
Yeah, we are similar to Puerto Rico in that we're so vulnerable to this type of thing. We're really independent out here.
But now's the time to take action. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to see us really starting to push that along. And that's about to, I think, go up to the governor in the next few days.
So it's already passed conference committee or not yet?
It may not need to go to conference committee.
Oh, okay.
Some of the bills, and this is a great way to wrap up, I think, some of the bills that don't need to have differences between them go straight to the governor. And there's already a few of those that are moving along.
The legislative process, every year I'm still learning more about it. Well, I want to thank you for being with us here today.
Thanks very much for having me.
And we'll see how this goes. And thank you all for joining us on Live at the Legislature. We'll see you again next week.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature Weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The public access room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Valerie Joseph.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capitol.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators.
Can I?
From your district
Can I
number
just do the
to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature Weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capitol.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community.
The legislature. I am Crystal Lakanapang here with House Minority Leader and District 43 Rep Andrea Tupola. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
You look fabulous. Thank you for
you.
being here. All right, so first off, congratulations. It's a big deal when things get heard, things get passed here, you know, because it's a long process. But you must be excited because HR 110 Reso has finally adopted into form. So tell us what this entails.
So I had introduced a resolution in regards to utilizing the actual correct Hawaiian names for places, plants, and so if you look through the reso, you can see the details of it, but it was something that, of course, as a supporter and a speaker of the Hawaiian language, I wanted to see more of this. I don't know if you heard, but Hawaiian Airlines did their first flight all in Olelo, Hawaii. So that's not just the announcement, but the whole entire flight was done in Olelo, Hawaii. And so this resolution was passed, and now it's part of law, and it is suggesting to the state that we actually start to use the correct place names for people, for places and beaches. So instead of calling it bathrooms or depots or walls, or actually using the name of the place. And I think that it'll also help for a lot of residents, Hawaiians, non-Hawaiians, people who are just born and raised here in Hawaii, to actually understand some of these place names and why they were called that.
So what you're saying is when we're watching the news, they're going to be referring to certain beaches now as the Hawaiian name?
Well, I want to see that it start happening. I mean, now that we've passed this resolution, and I think people have been open to this conversation. As you can hear in the airport, you hear the announcements being made in Olelo, Hawaii. The idea is that here in Hawaii, being connected to this place that we call home, we should know the original names of these places and know the story behind it.
I personally think that people should be pronouncing it well, as well, you know, that's one of my pet peeves, so I get it. Okay, so we're approaching the final weeks of the 29th legislation session. What is the next process? Because this is actually where it gets good, right? Where the rubber hits the road. What is the next process?
Well, so right now, basically, we have 2 weeks left, and in these 2 weeks, they call it conference committee. This is where there's a version of the House and a version in the Senate of a certain bill that have disagreements, meaning that the Senate version and the House version differ a little bit. We go to a conference committee. The chairs of those 2 committees determine what version or what parts of the Senate and House, and then they come together and then we take a vote. So these next 2 weeks are kind of like the last, 858 bills that had discrepancies that we're going to go through. A lot of bills will die for sure. So next week, Friday, if bills haven't gotten a hearing and if they actually have not been scheduled, then they're dead for this whole session. So I think that this is the last section of it, and then we have one more vote on May 1st, and then the legislature is done on May 3rd.
So to give our viewers a little bit more insight, you guys initially started with 3,000 bills. What does it look like now as far as the count?
It may have been more than that. I don't know what the actual count of bills submitted for the Senate and the House. You have to remember that we're in the biennium, meaning we're in the second year of a 2-year cycle. So bills that were introduced in 2017 rolled over into this year. So anything you introduced last year, in addition to what you introduced this year, was all part of bills that could have been scheduled for hearings. So I think it's usually cut down by 90% with the bills that actually pass through and become law.
So there's a lot of disappointment at this stage.
Well, I think for a lot of people who have kind of watched their bills go through it, and you got to remember, some of these people have been year after year after year coming to the legislature asking, please pass this, and it's been either deferred in committee or maybe it went through the House and the Senate but then died in conference. And there's so many different ways that a bill can make it through, but there's so many groups of people that you have to get on board to understand and support, because if the department opposes your bill or if a huge amount of testimony comes in opposing your bill, you have to go through and try to figure out how to communicate your message to everyone that's opposing it to get everyone to understand what it's about.
On a different note, SB 2609, Rep. Thielen had motioned for this bill to be recommitted. Now, what would the bill do, and why did Rep. Thielen have it recommitted?
You know, so we had talked about this as a caucus. She wanted to take the lead on it. Of course, we all supported our caucus member. This bill specifically had to do with the disclosure of records, financial records and financial statements for members of certain boards and commissions. I know that there was a long list of the boards and commissions, but a few of the ones that you should know about was the Board of Land and Natural Resources. I think there was another one for the Water Commission, and there was some other that the conversation we had was that it's a lot of boards and commissions that make huge decisions for the state of Hawaii, and to not disclose their financial records, and of course some of the proponents of the bill or supporters, but it's still going to say who they got money from, just not the quantity. Well, that's kind of a big deal to know the quantity of money that one person is getting that may or may not be influencing their decision as a board member. So people said, oh no, we need to support this so that we will attract more people to want to be on boards and commissions in the state. But there is no study and no clear nexus to say that if we put this non-disclosure on people's financial statements, that all of a sudden everyone's going to raise their hand and say, sign me up for a board and a commission. So we had proposed to recommit that bill. Rep. Thielen took the lead. We supported her. Of course, the motion failed, but we did that again. We did that last year as well. We stood up, recommitted a bill that a lot of Democrats were also opposed to. We were opposed to, and that bill eventually died. So when you recommit a bill, it's basically bringing highlight and importance to something that shouldn't be moving along in the House or the Senate.
Good to know. SB 2990, we're just moving along. Paid family leave. I initially thought we had paid family leave in Hawaii, but this is still on the table. What is this about?
So in our state, they are proposing to do an implementation board. This board will be convened with 18 board members, and they will determine what model of family leave the state will adopt. This is of concern to small business owners across the state of Hawaii because they feel like the representation is a little unequal, with only 3 of the 18 members being small business owners. Now, most of the people support paid or form of paid family leave. What people are asking is, what model are we going to be adopting? In the state of Washington, they adopted a certain model that took them 10 years to implement. And so we want to make sure to be very mindful of small businesses. I mean, as you know, there are some businesses that only have 1 employee, 2 employees. If this was to go into effect, would they be able to still support it? So we want to make sure that we are balancing both the need for paid family leave as well as the small businesses voicing out their concerns. And so that bill is still moving along.
You support education a lot, and you support the arts. What are you doing for the music and arts for your district?
So this Friday we are holding a ukulele bash. This is going to be at Ko'olina, and it's at Lagoon 4 if you'd like to come out. The students will be arriving between 3 and 4 p.m. and they're going to engage in workshops of both making and playing the ukulele, and then it'll be open to the public from 6 to 7. You can hear your West Side students perform, as well as Carly G, Honoka, and Azita, and it is a free concert for all. Ko'olina, 4 Seasons, 4th Lagoon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rep. Tupola, for being here with us today and letting our viewers know that we should follow along to see what bill makes the final cut and keep our elected officials accountable for their actions. Until next time, with Representative Andrew Tupola, I'm Crystal Lakana Pang here live at the Ledge. We will see you next time. Aloha.